Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining us again for Hudson County Review Live. I'm your host, the man that lifts barbell plates, eats T-bone steaks at a demeanor that's still sweeter than a chocolate cake, John Arhitis. And today we're joined with Jersey City Council President Rolando Lavarro. Rolando, thanks for coming on.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks, John.
All right, no problem. So, one thing that caught my attention yesterday, as far as Jersey City is concerned, the mayor tweeted that the council will be voting on potentially canceling two tax-abated projects, which I believe is a first. So could you tell us a little bit about what the projects are and how this all came to be?
There's two different projects. One's on the West Side Avenue, near Fisk Street, and that's basically a project that's stalled and it hasn't been compliant with regard to kind of the requirements of the tax abatement, whether it be the hiring or the timetable for actually building the project. It's been underway for years. I don't recall the exact timeline, but currently there's been very little activity on it, or no activity rather, probably in quite some time. And then the second project is, it's my understanding, I believe it was a completed project over on 9th Street, and that particular project, there was non-compliance with regard to some of the hiring requirements. Local hiring, it's stuff that we've pushed for in both cases.
The project labor agreement?
Project labor agreements and PICAs, performance employment contracting agreements. I'm wanting to make sure that folks are doing what's called goodwill at that time. For those, right now we have in project labor agreements hard targets for hiring and so forth, but prior to that, these particular projects had project labor agreements or PICAs that did not have that, and they have the good faith requirement, but we're holding folks accountable on the good faith. So I think that's a move in the right direction, and it's about time that we've done that. So
obviously you're just one vote, but it sounds like you're pretty much committed to voting these abatements down.
Yeah, if they're not compliant and they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, if they're not doing the hiring, if they're not completing the project, then yes, we can move on down and send that message.
All right, so it sounds like you're going to have an interesting meeting, because on top of that, there's also this West Side SID, which is, of course, in Ward B, and it would be another way to try to generate some revenue in the city. So tell us a little bit about that. Of course, I know you live in Ward B, and I'm sure it's something you've been following closer than most.
Yeah. So the Councilwoman Mira Prinzari, she's proposed the establishing an ordinance, establishing a West Side Avenue Special Improvement District. Obviously, we have several of them in Jersey City, from Central Avenue to up in the Heights, and Central Avenue in the Heights, as well as two in downtown with the historic downtown on SID on Newark Avenue and the pedestrian plaza covering that space. And then you got the one more recently on the downtown waterfront with the Exchange Place Alliance. In other parts of the city, you also have Journal Square SID, which encompasses India Square over there, as well as McKinley Square, closer to St. Peter's University. And then over on the south side, you have Jackson Hill SID, which encompasses the entire length of MLK Drive, as well as Monticello Avenue.
Yeah.
I think the west side SID, as proposed by the councilwoman, in some ways mimics kind of what the Jackson Hill SID is doing, covering a lot of ground. It's a big it's a large piece of area that's being covered from Fisk Street all the way down furthest north on West Side Avenue up to Broadway, practically. So it's a long piece, as well as parts of Communicable Avenue through the middle of that West Side Avenue. I've expressed some concerns about this, and my concern is that given the couple of things, first of all, with regard to, we just completed the revaluation. The stories are out there, and looking at some of the numbers, some of the property owners, commercial property owners, they've seen dramatic increases in their taxes as a result of the revaluation. And then more recently, while supportive of the payroll tax and the idea of funding our schools, it's an additional tax on top of these businesses, both large and small. And so we don't know necessarily, although many of them probably have Jersey City employees. We don't know exactly what the impact is there for some of those businesses there at this point, and then you add on an additional assessment. So I think the timing issue here is that there's issues there, a lot of uncertainty, and in business and commerce, it's trying to create certainty in the market is important, highly important, right? The second thing is it's the most diverse area. If you look at some of the studies in that 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 was supporting that SID, or led to the development of the SID, is that they talk about the great diversity of that area. And in talking to many of the property owners and business owners in the area, many of them were completely unaware of kind of the SID and what its implications were. And I personally walked portions of the West Side Avenue and talked directly with property owners and business owners.
And I know some of them, not to cut you off, but I know some of them expressed some discontent and some concern about the fact that so many taxes hitting them at once.
Yeah, and that's exactly to the point. And so many taxes hitting them at once, the idea that they just recently learned about this one as it comes to a final vote. So I think there's work to be done there. I think these SIDs only really operate well if you have buy-in from the property owners and business owners for whom they're being assessed, like it's their dollars, right? So you want to have them vested in it and have buy-in from them so that they will own this and be able to see some value in it. If you talk to many of them, they ask them, there's great skepticism, as I think there is of government in general, and the idea that you're going to take more of my dollars, and what am I going to get for it in return? And so that begs the question as to, like, they weren't really necessarily engaged in that process. And so hopefully can get back there and have some meaningful dialogues with some of the business owners and talk to them about what their needs are before moving forward with assessing them an additional tax on top of it.
So you think it's a little too much too soon to pass this?
Yeah, I think the timing is bad, and I think it's time to, I think we need to kind of go back to the drawing board a little bit and talk to local businesses and property owners there.
So on this point, obviously we just had this whole debate about the payroll tax, and it passed, and now there's a lawsuit. So this is going to be something that's ongoing and just day to day. So what's your take on the new lawsuit filed by Matt Calley and where you think it goes from here?
I haven't taken the time to really kind of read through the entire lawsuit. I mean, I understand kind of the basis of it from reading news clippings and things of that nature. As I said when I voted for the payroll tax, although I did have other ideas on how we should approach the whole school funding issue, this is in the domain now. It's a payroll tax, and hopefully we will win this case and be able to collect the monies, and we will be able to continue collecting the monies because I believe the courts rendered a decision today about the injunction and so injunctive relief, and ruled in Jersey City's favor on that.
Sure.
So that's a relief, and so we'll be able to collect the money. But ultimately, whatever the decision is, hopefully there will be it'll work in Jersey City's favor. But that's not the end of the road for us in Jersey City, and I said this as well during the whole payroll tax discussion, and it gets us only part of the way and not even halfway necessarily to the solution there. And so there's more work to be done. I proposed other alternatives, and I'm going to continue to push forward with some of those things, including dedicating some of these some future tax abatement dollars in whole or in part to the Education Trust Fund for Jersey City Public Schools, as well as some of these pilot settlement monies with the Port Authority and Jersey City Medical Center, assuming we should approve the Port Authority settlement agreement around that. And then looking at other sources of funds, including lobbying to see as they wind their way through the marijuana discussion, and seeing if we can't interject in there and make sure that maybe some of that money could be dedicated to Jersey City Public Schools, among other things. So we can look at other sources of funds to kind of continue to make sure that we find other ways to fund our public schools going forward. And then beyond that, we really need to kind of think of a long-term plan on this. And there's talk of the schools raising their taxes and so forth, but I think we need to take a good hard look, because as I've said in the past as well, when you look at just having the money for the schools isn't enough. Many of our schools need more than just money to be able to enhance the quality of education in these areas, and so we need to take a good hard look at the operations of the school as a whole and how things are funded to make sure that we're using our monies most efficiently and effectively to achieve extraordinary outcomes for our children.
Yeah, I mean, look, obviously it's an ongoing issue that's been a hot topic for decades now, and it's going to take some creative strategies. I mean, other than the payroll tax, what other things do you and the council have in mind that maybe we haven't heard about or everyone hasn't heard about yet? As
I suggested, the idea that reversing kind of the trend of the tax abatements. We can, instead of dedicating portions of that money to the city, which right now upwards of 95% and 90% of the monies go to the to the city of Jersey City, we can reverse that trend and do that. People will say, well, why didn't you do that earlier and so forth? And well, we didn't get our school funding cut until now, so $175 million. So I recognize the urgency and the crisis there, and so we can try to reverse some of that funding. I propose some things as well, and putting everything on the table. I think everything should be on the table in a situation like this, right? So I propose the idea of kind of reactivating and reaching out to our state legislators and the governor about reactivating the P3 legislation, which allowed us to develop the New Jersey City University campus over there. Through that P3 legislation, private partners and public entities can work together to build developments that can help fund the development itself, but also provide funding for that public institution like New Jersey City University did. I would say if we can do that and extend that to the Jersey City Public Schools, where they have large swaths of land, and no, I'm not talking about taking away the Ferris High School football field. I'm talking about maybe the air rights above Ferris High School, or the large parking lot in the back there that abuts Christopher Columbus Drive, and you could build there while still maintaining a parking lot, right? And the air rights above that. You could look at other schools throughout Jersey City and see if there's opportunities there. Certainly, downtown has a different market there that you could probably get more out of it with Ferris High School or other schools in that area, as well as we've got that school where the Hudson County Schools of Technology Explore 2000 is over on 9th Street as well, where it's a very flat, school on 9th Street where you see development going on all around it, and an opportunity there to possibly build on the air rights of that thing. I throw these all out as ideas. I'm not saying that they're perfect or that there's ways that they've been vetted, and so there's work to be done there to look at those kind of ideas. But we can look at all these different ideas and put them all out on the table, bring stakeholders together from the Jersey City Public Schools, from the city council, the administration, and bring it, and private industry as well, and teachers' unions and other folks, bring them all to the table, sit down, and try to figure out long-term solutions to sustainability for our Jersey City Public Schools.
Sure. So, obviously, there's a lot going on in Jersey City, as we just, been discussing this whole time, but it's a relatively sleepy time of year. But one thing that I think caught some Politico's attention this week was you and Mayor Fulop had a bit of a dust-up again over the Bayfront project. So from those who missed it, could you just give us a refresher on, what was going on from your perspective, and then the reaction you got from City Hall?
Yeah, so, I think the Bayfront project is a great project. I've said that, and very publicly and openly. I'm in alignment with the administration and other folks in seeing that we develop Bayfront, and the opportunities and possibilities, I think, are boundless there, right? So the opportunity for affordable housing, and particularly as Jersey City continues to grow and develop, and how do we continue to provide affordable housing opportunities for our Jersey City residents, Bayfront provides that possibility for us. So up to 35% affordable housing. I want to make sure that we've bonded and invested $170 million, $90 million for the acquisition, and then for the infrastructure build-out over there as well, that we'd be very good stewards of the taxpayers' dollars on this, but also, equally importantly, that we actually realize the vision. And so what happened there was that there was, at the last Jersey City Redevelopment Agency meeting, which I was still a commissioner at in the end of November, there was a contract to hire a company called Perkins Eastman to do consulting work that would provide us direction on how to strategize and plan this whole development project and selling tranches of land and so forth that we've talked about. By all accounts, and I said this publicly in my statements on Facebook and everything, is that the Perkins Eastman are very reputable. The folks who recommended them, smart folks from the City of Jersey City, and have no problem with that. Just in the process of vetting all of that information during the meeting, learned that they were really the only firm that was looked at that time. And again, not imputing anyone's reputation on that. As I said then, not alleging any improprieties, but simply saying that we need to hold ourselves to the highest standards for everything related to Bayfront, but every transaction, I would say. But I think in the case of Bayfront, where so much money is invested for Jersey City taxpayers, and then the goal and the vision there, it's so important in terms of providing affordable housing opportunities for Jersey City residents that I think that we should do our best to hold ourselves to a higher bar with regard to transparency and being able to do things that we're making sure we're completely above board on all things. And with regard to looking at multiple potential contracts or vendors, in that case, consultants. I don't think that was necessarily a big ask around that. And but at the same time, I abstained on the vote. I didn't oppose it, in part because I recognize that the company itself is a strong company.
With all that being said, the response from the mayor's office was not particularly welcoming, I guess we could call it. They said something along the lines of, the council president on this one is either disingenuous or incredibly misinformed. Obviously, I don't have it in front of me, but it was something along those lines.
Something along that line, yeah.
So, what's your take on the response?
The mayor is apt to make those kind of responses, and as I said in my response to all of that, it's like kind of paraphrasing what Nancy Pelosi said to Donald Trump when they were talking about the border wall and the budget, that we're going to have this conversation based on facts. So, everything that was said there was just not factual at all, right? So that being said, I'm really not interested in the tit for tat and the back and forth. My commitment here, as I said, was to make sure that we're doing right for the people of Jersey City and for the taxpayers of Jersey City, and that we're staying completely focused on that vision of 100% affordable housing. 135% affordable housing, and that we're fully committed. I have, as I said, confidence that those folks that are working on this, that they're doing their best and they're trying to do a good job. But I also want to make sure that that we're leaving no stone unturned in this process. And I'll do that. I'm no longer a member of the Jersey City Redevelopment Agency, but I'll do it as the council president and as a councilman after that. And we'll continue to hold everyone accountable to make sure that this project stays on track and that we are doing everything we can to achieve our goals and our vision there of 35% affordable housing, and be a model for the nation around that.
Well, on that point, obviously, anybody that's going to watch this probably knows that the reorganizations for all the various municipal agencies happens in January, usually the first week. So are you interested in returning as council president as of now?
For this, the next reorganization will be January 1st, 2020.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's in 2 years.
Oh, the 2-year term. Okay,
yep.
Got it. All right, so crisis averted there.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Now, another thing, on a lighter note, this week you were also talking about resolution, I believe it is, that would make the agendas for the meetings available. It's 13 days instead of 6 days. So I guess this is something you came up with after hearing from residents complain that they couldn't really absorb all the information in time for the meeting. Yeah,
I think residents want more information, a bit more easily accessible. They see all of the reams of information, and one of the other thing that we're also going to have is on this agenda is a digital agenda, which the administration, working together with the business administrator and the city clerk on that stuff, to make it more accessible online and digitally in that form. But you couple that with just having more time in the process, and residents can get more information and be able to understand what's going on and what the decisions are that are being made. And frankly speaking, for the council people as well, right? So it's six days at best when we receive the agenda to the time that we make the decision over a weekend. And in some cases, on a few occasions, sometimes it's 5 days, if depending on how the calendar falls in that sense.
The agendas are usually what, like a few hundred pages?
At least over 100 to 150 pages as a norm, I'd say. But on a special day and a special council meeting, it could be several hundreds of pages at that point, right? So I think that benefits. I mean, I hear from my colleagues in the council as well that oftentimes that how do you expect me to get through all of these papers? And everybody looks at the big stack that's right before them, and so this will hopefully alleviate some of that and be able to allow people to have more time to be able to make educated decisions that are so important to Jersey City and Jersey City residents.
Okay. Yeah. And another thing that I know you've been speaking about publicly on and off is the street sweeping.
Yes.
So that's something that a lot of people consider the bane of their existence over in JC. It's tough to find spots as it is, and then you got to move at a certain time, and the tickets, they add up quickly, as you know. So, I mean, just tell us when you would hope to see that on an agenda and what your vision is there.
So I'm going to pick this back up. I kind of honestly fell off my radar a little bit with the elections and everything that came through. But we're going to pick it back up in the new year. And the idea there, as you alluded to, if you go to jcparkingpetition.com, you'll see a survey there and a petition to provide information about changing some of the street sweeping rules for Jersey City's street sweeping rules on most residential streets. There is the petition itself and some survey questions, and then there's also information about the specific kind of changes looking to make for street sweeping as well as parking rules. There are several components to that. We call it Project Street. Street is an acronym. S being the street sweeping changes. T has to do with ticket amnesty, and then there's some changes to posting things online and making it electronic. R has to do with, I'm trying to remember all of it at this point. It's been a little while. There's also changing to some of the booting rules around that, and electronic reminders and getting ticket reminders and so forth. The big thing, though, is the change in street sweeping, changing it for most residential streets. It's 2 days a week on each side, so 4 times a week. You have to move your car 4 times a week, whether it's 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. or 10 a.m. to noon or 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. Every neighborhood has it differently.
Yeah.
But you have to change it twice. You have to move your car twice a week on both sides, or 4 times a week. So we're proposing to change it to 1 time a week on each side. And after doing some research and finding out that most municipalities, not just in the state of New Jersey, but throughout the country, that doing it as frequently as we do it is the exception, right? In most cases, it's less frequently than even 1 day a week on each side. So we're looking to make that change, but at the same time, hopefully build the case that that streets won't be dirtier if we invest in better street sweepers, because right now we have these old antiquated street sweepers that we spend a lot of money on doing repairs and parts replacements and things of that nature. And so hopefully with better street sweepers, we have one in our fleet right now. If we make the investment in there, we can reduce our time in the number of times we street sweep every residential street. And in addition, the folks who are doing parking enforcement can focus on other things besides kind of street sweeping violations, which we issued several years ago. Jersey Journal reported over 165,000 parking tickets just for street sweeping.
What year was that?
If I recall, I think it was 2016.
Okay, so not
2015, not too long ago.
Yeah.
And so that's, I mean, if you take that number for every person who has a car in Jersey City, every person has been touched by a street sweeping ticket probably in that 1 year in Jersey City, right? So
it's a big number, yeah.
It's a big number, maybe more than once at that point. And so you'd be able to refocus some of our resources, our parking enforcement resources, on other things like zone parking violations, where instead of ticketing our local residents who actually live here in Jersey City, looking at the people who don't live in Jersey City, don't have a zone parking permit or a residential parking permit, and be able to focus on those, enforcing those violations, and actually creating parking spaces for Jersey City residents in the process.
Got it.
Yeah.
So we mentioned this in passing a few minutes ago, but just to go beneath the surface, if you will, I mean, obviously you ran with the mayor twice. You guys have had a good relationship politically, as far as anybody could tell, and obviously you guys haven't seen eye to eye on a couple big issues recently. I mean, where does your guys' relationship stand today, and are you still able to coexist in City Hall as it stands for the time being?
Yeah, look, I'm focused on just doing the work of Jersey City. I have to work because Mayor Fulop, have to work with him. He's the mayor of our city, and so we're going to work together to get the job done here in Jersey City. I'm focused on some of the same issues that he is, and that has to do with our taxes, our quality of life, crime in our streets, and then obviously the issue of gentrification and affordable housing and things of that nature. So those are my priorities. I'm not going to be deterred or distracted by some of the other things and as I said, the politics of things, and I'm going to stay focused on doing the job.
Okay, interesting approach here in Hudson County, but
doing the job, yes.
Yeah,
interesting.
Yeah. So as far as I'm glad you mentioned public safety. As you know, Jersey City has gotten a lot of attention over this use of force report by NJ Advanced Media, and Jersey City apparently had gotten into the trend of very seldom filing these reports, and the city had at times called for reforms, but we don't really know what those reforms are, if they've started, if they're in the works. So it seems like a lot of things are unclear to the general public as far as public safety and the police force goes. So could you give us any sort of clarity on what's been happening there and what will be happening in the near future?
I don't have new information for you on that front. I do know that I can say that I'm concerned about it and have seen the stories about that, and I haven't made direct inquiries, and will do that. I have talked to other members of the council who also expressed similar concerns about the lack of information or reports that haven't been released and not providing adequate reporting on that. I know from being at the Jersey City Together meeting and hearing the mayor talk about that they would have information available the next time they gathered over there, and his recent declarations that will be the most transparent within this regard. And so I'm going to look into all of that and make sure, as is required for me and as a city councilman, to hold accountable for these, making sure that these reporting requirements are held accountable for that.
All right, Council President, anything else you wanted to say before we part ways here?
No, I think it just in the holiday season. Happy holidays, Jersey City, and we wish everyone the best and the best in 2019.
All right, Mr. Council President, thank you for joining us. Yes, happy holidays to you as well. Thank you, my esteemed colleague, Mark Buzadich, who makes all these lovely videos possible. Everybody have a happy holiday and a holly jolly Christmas.